All right, so then we'll get started. I don't want to keep anybody here any longer than we have to for this gorgeous day. I think this is probably the pick of the summer so far. This is really beautiful. So thank you all for coming. You know, I know there's like a lot of other things that we could be doing, so I'm glad that everybody is here. We are going to record it for those of you, those people who aren't here who do want to see what's going on, but still have other things to do today. So thank you, Alex, for doing that for us. I want to start off by introducing Sheriff McConville, Kevin McConville, from Putnam County. He's here to give us his presentation and answer any questions you guys may have. So, Kevin, no?
Thanks, Michael. Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to be here. I live alongside the Hudson River, so I love water myself, and we spend a lot of time when we vacation trying to go near water, like everybody else. But we have the beauty of having it right in our backyard, so we have to do a lot to make sure that we preserve it and keep its integrity for others to use and use it properly. I've got 31 years in law enforcement. I'm excited to become your sheriff and implement new programs and concepts into the sheriff's department. Within our first 6 weeks in office, we had a homicide. It was reported as a missing woman, and during the course of the investigation, my BCI captain was very quickly to determine that it was far more serious than that. In the course of that investigation, over 14 days, we determined that there was an interstate drug ring that was being operated between New York, Connecticut, and North Carolina. When we effected the arrest and concluded the investigation for the homicide, we were able to provide the Sheriff's Department in North Carolina with the location of the remains within 36 inches, based on all the work that we had done. Those individuals pled guilty. We charged them with federal crimes because of the tri-state involvement, and they are now awaiting sentencing. So that was successfully concluded. And just recently, we had an arrest here in Putt Valley relative to Camp Eden. We haven't done a press release on it just yet, but it was 2 Class A1 felony rapes. We identified the 3 individuals that night. We arrested 2 of them. The third one, unfortunately, escaped the country and has returned to his home country. We are working with our federal partners to have him extradited to face justice. So we have a very robust investigative team. As far as patrol, we are doing a lot of things to enforce speed. Now, I know the roads around here are narrow. People love to walk with their dogs and their family, and the cars try to fit on it. It's a tight fit. We've looked at it in terms of speed enforcement and awareness. So I'm working with Supervisor Anabi and Legislator Goulman on a couple of solutions for that. We don't even think that we can fit a speed trailer which would identify the vehicles that exceed the speed limit or do things that they shouldn't in these areas because the roadways are pretty tight. But we are looking at that. As far as technology, when I came into office, we had 1 license plate reader, 1 LPR. I'm going to refer to them as LPR. And it did not work. Did not work. Those things are fantastic. We purchased 13 of them. We expect to get them at the end of September. We have refiled with the Central Hudson and New York State Electric and Gas, the utility companies, and the Department of Transportation to install properly based on their criteria license plate readers on fixed locations. I'm not worried about the speeding so much on certain highways, but investigative-wise, those things can tell us a lot of information. We're looking for a specific car. We don't have to, it cuts the time. We don't have to beat the bushes for that. It pops up. If a car is stolen, it pops up. We had in Putnam Valley in February, a 78-year-old woman go missing. Wasn't reported to us until 7 a.m. She suffered from some dementia issues. Her husband didn't realize she was missing. She was missing since 11 o'clock the previous night. She had on a pair of slacks and a t-shirt. She survived the night. We found her within 35 minutes, and we were able to provide her with medical treatment for some of the issues that she was dealing with. But had she gotten in a car and she had access to the keys and driven off, those license plate readers, we would have fed that information into the system. Those LPRs would have told us about that. Just recently, we met, my Undersheriff Tom Lindert and I met with Supervisor Nabi about the lakes, about the trespassing issues. We met with the code enforcement officer to ensure that he understood his legal authority to enforce the local ordinances. So that seems to be resolving itself. And we also talked about some trespass issues, and we're working on a few other issues with the supervisor. I was fortunate to have dinner with the supervisor and Mike last night, along with about 85 other people. And we talked at length about a few issues that we're going to be addressing. We do a mass notification system in Putnam. So we notify schools, our elected officials, our religious institutions, and we're trying to get members of the business community to come on board so that we can push out information relative to any incident, whether it's a road closure or it's the report of a serious crime or some information we want the public to know about. It didn't exist. We implemented that in February. I can tell you we've used it a couple hundred times, notifying schools and elected officials about certain things. One of the other things that we're doing is we're replacing what's known as a CAD RMS system, computer-aided dispatch, and the records management system. The systems that are in place now that we currently use are not searchable. They haven't been upgraded in 20 years. I was fortunate to make my presentation to the county executive and her team and the legislature when the ARPA money was being distributed. And for fire, EMS, and law enforcement services, we are going to be installing that in the coming months. And that'll improve your lot in life because we'll be able to get to places quicker. There'll be GPS involved. There'll be call history. So we'll know who we're dealing with, how frequently, to keep our deputies and investigators safe when they respond to a call, much less to keep you safe. Orders of protection will be in there, as well as some permitting information or licensing information in terms of legally owned handguns, or even those that are illegally owned that we've dealt with someone in previously. We are, on the correctional side, we're putting in a new jail management system. It'll allow us, anytime we get an individual remanded to the jail, to look to see if he's been in one of the 48 county jails in New York State. We'll be able to download all that information relative to that individual, and we'll have it in our database, and it'll alert us to behavioral or mental health issues, and we can treat that. And we do that treatment in the jail. You may have heard recently or seen some press releases. We have a program called Team Up for School Safety. I've met with all the school districts. Superintendent Lutz was a pleasure to meet with. We're going to use that money strictly to target harden the schools. And as part of that, we've implemented mental health systems into those programs so that the schools have a number of resources that they can draw from to treat issues, whether they're behavioral or mental health. Because right now, you think about it, someone goes to school and does something untoward, they get suspended for a day or a week. They come back. That problem's not solved. So we want an immediate evaluation assessment by mental health professionals, of which will include the county DSS team, Department of Social Services, and the school psychologist. And they'll be able to recommend treatment programs, interact with the families, and us as we look and perform a number of investigative actions behind the scenes to make sure that that behavior or that mental health issue doesn't lead to harm for other people. We are working really very, very hard with our school resource officers to keep the schools safe. Those locations, those institutions should be, have always been, a place to go and learn for children. And if we don't take care of them and provide that safety and security, not just for the students, but for the educators, then we're doing a disservice to the next and future generations of Americans. And they won't be able to learn, and we'll all suffer as a result of that. Those are some of the things that we're doing. I kind of went all over them. I gave you a general overview, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or clarify any of the points that I've made. So feel free to ask away. Not all at once.
At the high school campus, is there still one SRO?
Yes.
We have two.
Yes. Now that money that we're using as part of the ARPA funds, I can't utilize it for reoccurring costs. So what we want to do, and I'll dive a little deeper into this, there's a lot of technology. And it's not the answer for everything, but you have to use technology effectively to make it productive. So obviously we want card access in the schools. The problem is if I go to Putt Valley School and pull my ID out, I can't get in the building. Our ID cards won't work with that technology, so we want to put in combo bypass devices. We would utilize the money at, just let's say, Putt Valley, for instance, to put in a bypass so we could get in an emergency. I met with the superintendents back in late January. We want access to their video feeds. I don't want to know what goes on there on a daily basis. I'm not interested in the food fights in the cafeteria. That's their business. But in an emergency or a report of a missing child, we want to be able to log right in and start reviewing video and make determinations so that as our teams are responding, we can guide, direct, and control that response to be effective and appropriate. We are also looking at a number of applications that would go on the faculty and the teachers' cell phones. And they can utilize it to report subject matter related to school incidents. Someone's acting unusual or makes comments. It's called anonymous alerts. It's very effective. And it doesn't identify who's making the report. So it's a safe way for a student to let us know and the school know about another student, perhaps someone in the community that may be acting unusual or in a manner that seems to be threatening to others, so that we can investigate that and address that situation, whether it's behavioral or it's mental health or criminal in some respects. And we're also going to utilize that funding for a program that the faculty can put on their phone and report an incident live. And it become a communicator, so as we're responding to an incident, we can communicate to the individual who's reported that matter. Okay? At Putnam Valley, you have Deputy Dan Murray as your SRO. He's a great guy, does an outstanding job down there. And I was just with the SROs yesterday morning as we're giving them training on a number of different things to improve the safety and security in the schools. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
On our lake, we have certain rules, like out of town people should not be able to fish on the lake. Do you enforce that? Should you be called on that?
Okay, so the way the ordinance is written, it doesn't give us the authority to enforce that. We need a signed complaint. So if someone sees someone violating those ordinances, they need to call us, sign a complaint, and then we can take action. So we can enforce them, but that's the process that has to be employed to have it occur. Okay?
And so that can be done on the same day.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I received, and I was giving the supervisor last night, she called me 4 times last weekend on subject matter. And our deputy it took a little longer to get down here because we were involved in an incident involving a fight between a couple of individuals. So they were tied up with that for a little bit before the deputy could get down here. And then when the deputy got down here, they handled that situation. But we would be happy to respond and address that subject matter.
What were those situations? Can you give us examples of when you'll come and when you won't come?
When we won't come?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we come?
Because it's a local matter. It's a private lake.
We will still, you call, we're coming.
Okay.
Okay? And we're going to tell you how this has to be resolved. There's a legal way to resolve it.
Okay.
Obviously, we don't want any litigation for ourselves or you, so we want to make sure that we follow the rules that apply.
But the rules also include that they shouldn't come with a foreign boat. So
We met with your code enforcement officer, and we've discussed, there was some confusion on his behalf about his authority. We laid that out for him. That should be taken care of now. And he has the authority on the water to issue a summons.
What about parking? I know
We don't have
Jack's
anything like
coming
that.
up with a new ordinance.
He's mixing up his legs.
Parking permits, right, for the residents here. If someone's parked, if somebody's parked at the beach without a permit, the new permits that are coming out, would you be able to then come in and give them a ticket, or is
It
that?
all depends on how that ordinance is written,
Okay.
and we're in conversation.
All right. So
with
Jackie's on top
Jackie
of
to
that.
know that, yes.
Okay, great. And then if you do it, let's say a car doesn't have a permit, will you do a check on the license plate to see if they live here? Or they may actually have might be a summer home, they may live in the city, but they still have a house up here, the address might be in the city.
That depends.
Yeah.
We like to have reasonable cause
Yeah.
to run a license plate. We really just don't run them randomly.
Really? Okay, so that means if they don't have a permit, then they're gonna get a ticket, sounds like.
By the town ordinance,
Right,
conceivably,
okay,
if it's written that way.
okay. And then if they do live here, they can come in, I'm assuming, and say, I live here, and then the ticket's void.
They go
Yeah,
to
that
a
would be
judge.
for the,
They go to a judge.
yeah, that would be for the court to adjudicate. We don't,
Okay.
Let's say the law is written that either the code enforcement or us are able to write a summons. Whatever happens after we write that happens in the court of law. The judge is able to say, okay, you're a resident here,
Okay.
I dismiss it.
Right.
Ma'am, you had a question.
I was curious, where are you going to install your license plate readers?
Well, we look at areas that give us the most information in terms of travel. So we're in the process of identifying. We're buying 13 mobile, and we just put up because of a administrative issue, 4 in Phillipstown. They put up 2 yesterday, 2 are going up today, and we have additional funding that we've been able to identify through the federal government to purchase more. And we should get that money in September. That's it's DASNY grant, and that's when it gets released. We've been told we have it, but until we have the cash in our hands or an account, we can't write any contracts with LPR companies. Ma'am?
You referred to a code enforcement officer. Is that somebody from Putnam Valley?
Yes.
And if so, could you give us the name and the way to reach that person?
He's listed, I don't recall his name off the top
The
of my head.
building inspector.
Yeah, it's your building inspector.
The building inspector.
He also serves as code enforcement. He has that in his.
So it is important to us for you to understand that any access to that person would probably be just 9 to 4:30 Monday through Friday.
That's not my understanding.
Okay.
My understanding is that he was to be available beyond that hour.
Okay. But for a parking violation, we could call the sheriff.
If we're written, if the ordinance is written that we can enforce it. It's different if in front of your driveway I park and block your driveway. No one can do that. But at the bottom of the hill here, you can't block roadways. I mean, there's some normal vehicle and traffic laws that you can't, that we're entitled to enforce, that we would issue a summons or tow the vehicle. Okay? However, for violations of waterfront beach parking, we may not be authorized to do that.
What language would be needed for you to?
Well, we're working on that with the supervisor.
Okay.
She's aware. We've had this discussion for about 6 weeks, so that we both understand where this potentially may go. Right? I don't know that it's gonna. I don't know how quickly it would go into place. I would assume through the government functions, she would want to have a hearing, or perhaps two. It's got to be presented by the committee, brought to the full town board, probably a public hearing, and then at some point the board would vote on it, either enact it or table it, or want it modified. There's a lot of little nuances, you know, in terms of getting that placed in the law. Okay? Hey.
So now, if it's 9 o'clock at night and there's a question that there's people on a beach that is either closed at dusk or there's no swimming allowed, should residents reach out?
Call us.
Okay.
Call us. You know, at the very least, we can get them out of there. If they're violating the law, we'll look to enforce it appropriately. Whether that's a summons or something else. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any safety tips that aren't obvious, like lock your door, look at your Ring camera, anything that might be missing?
Sure. So there's a lot of activity with catalytic converters. I have to be careful here because we have a very in-depth investigation going on. We've made a number of arrests. The problem is the cat converters aren't serialized. So at 3 a.m., if you pull a car over and he's got 4 or 6 cat converters in the car, we know what happens. If we don't have a report of a crime at a specific location, we can't identify where that cat converter goes. So, and everybody should have, because it's affordable today, and it just makes a lot of sense, ring or Nest cameras, some sort of security system in your residence. I have a number of them. They're a little annoying because they go off depending on how it's a good annoyance. I know when someone's near my residence, so does my family. They know when someone's around. We joined, I was surprised, at the very least, to learn that we weren't part of the Ring network. We had an armed robbery in Garrison on February 13th. So we showed up at the scene, we listened to what was going on, and we asked one investigator to be assigned to go door to door to see if we could pull any Ring video or Nest video in a geographical area surrounding where the crime took place. We subsequently came back with a number of hits. Later that afternoon, we joined the Ring camera network. So we're able to put alerts out there. We're getting hit with a lot of financial scams. It's called washing. They're washing your checks. Technology is a great thing when it's used illegally, it's a nightmare. Too many people are putting checks in their mailbox at their front door or at the end of their driveway. And they're paying AT&T or the cable company or town taxes or whomever, and people are coming along stealing these checks. They know if it's going to Verizon or AT&T, you know there's a check in there. They take the check, they put it through a computer, which washes it. They're able to imprint their own amount in there. With computers, you can do a handwritten thing. It's horrible, but it's effective. And they're going and they're cashing these checks, and they're getting money. Now, as soon as we know, we do an investigative report on it. We provide it to the individual. They're not held harm at the bank level. They don't, the bank loses the money. Essentially, all of us lose that money. The problem is, it is so widespread that we've run into some roadblocks. We've done some really good work identifying players, but haven't been able to bring it back to a hub where it's coming out of. We had an individual in a town in Putnam County got a phone call at 11 o'clock in the morning. Your grandson's in jail. We need $13,600 for bail. Otherwise, he's going to jail. And it's a nasty jail. They're going to beat him up. And I can't promise you anything. So if you want the money, call an Uber driver and have them deliver. We'll tell them where to deliver this money. What's this poor guy do? Goes to the bank, withdraws $13,600, calls an Uber driver that they've been in contact with. The money's in a shoebox. He takes off. Now, the individual never called us. Didn't think there was anything untoward, because on the phone, they had a young man's voice crying, "Grandpa, help me, help me, help me." And the irony of it was, they said he was in jail in Connecticut. And you can't deal with the court. You have to call the judge personally. 31 years in law enforcement, I've called very few judges personally. Even less today. 2 hours later, he got a phone call saying, "You're not going to believe this. They raised the bail. We need another $13,400. The individual, even though his son had called us and we had sent a deputy to the house, begin the investigation, and our investigators had been on the phone with him telling him they were coming over to the residence, and he was told, "We're going to call you back, and they're going to call you back within 2 hours." And when they called back 2 hours and told him they wanted the additional funds, he went to the bank to try to get it. It's emotion. How many of you have grandkids, right? If they called, I know what I would do. You don't want any harm to come to them whatsoever. And he played on this individual's emotion. A little bit of an older individual, about 80 years old. Alert, cognizant, moves, drives, but played on his emotions for his grandchildren. And it was the perfect storm. Went to the bank, and the bank teller said, "I'm not giving it to you." And the bank teller told us, and we said, "We're about 2 minutes away from the guy's house. So let's meet him there." We've done an investigation. We know where the money went. We know the address where the money went. We're working with NYPD to identify the individuals in that building so that we can effect an arrest, which we believe will help all of law enforcement, NYPD as well. Because a lot of these bad actors seem to end up in the city to run these scams. And they have the Uber, right? Don't drink, don't drive, take an Uber. Right? They used Uber to deliver the money.
That exact thing happened to my father. He's 89. He was 89 at the time. And they said, "Oh, Dad, it's Miles, your grandson. Oh, I need money, money." So he was smart enough to question him. He said, "Oh, really? Where were we the other day?" I hung up. Click. And that was it.
There are rare occurrences. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
But now we have a guy out 13-6,
Yeah.
and we're working feverishly to try to get it. We're working, I call it the whole alphabet. We have more law enforcement agencies involved in this investigation. Just like the check washing, we're working with postal authorities. That has come to us and to other law enforcement agencies in a number of different scenarios, which really concerns us because we were telling people, take your money, take your check to the post office. We've discovered that some of the checks are coming from postal entities. So it's widespread. Ma'am,
No, okay, I had the same
you
situation.
were just going to punch me? Tell me to stop?
No, this is, but they put the kid on and he said, hey, Grandma, I need help. My grandson doesn't come.
You have to, it's tough to get that phone call. You have to think for a second. Because it doesn't work that way. Huh? But, you know, the jail never goes. It would be your grandson, your granddaughter calling. They do get a phone call. Right? So, yes, ma'am.
I've seen this sort of this long-running controversy about too much overtime in the sheriff's department and patrols being cut back, and the consultant's report said hire another deputy. What's your take on all of that?
Okay, so we've hired 9 deputies in the last 8 months.
Increased your numbers?
Not to increase, to fill vacancies.
Okay.
We have 5 in the academy right now,
Uh-huh.
and 4 out field training.
Uh-huh.
So those members that are out field training should be on their own in about another 4 or 5 weeks tops, which will add to the thing. I did read the Bonadeo report you're referring to.
Yeah. I guess.
I call into validity the report because it used no data from Putnam County. The sheriff's office didn't supply it with calls for service. And Bonadeo then went to 28 different law enforcement agencies and pulled their data. And they never identified what agencies they were and where they existed. So that data has to be suspect because we don't know where it came from. Overtime has to be managed, right? And I said when I took office, when appropriate, I will spend overtime money to ensure public safety. When we had the homicide, we did what we had to do to effect that arrest.
Yeah.
When we had the rape, we did what we had to do to effect that arrest, those arrests. When we have community events and we get asked to deploy people, I use a variety of funding sources to have personnel there to keep members of that community and visitors to that community safe. I will use overtime money as needed and as appropriate to keep people safe.
And are you increasing the number of deputies or
We've been working on our budget since March.
Uh-huh.
All right, we inherited a budget, so there were limitations, there were ceilings, and I told the legislature at a number of protective services meetings, I will manage that budget. I will manage that budget just like it's your money. Now I can go to you and say, look, I need another $50,000 because we have this crime that we're investigating, and you're not going to feel too bad about that. But if I just tell you I want $50,000 and do not justify it, you're going to wonder what the hell I'm doing.
So are you increasing the number of
We have
people on patrol?
everything that we're doing from January 1st till today is a strategy to improve the services to the community and to the residents of Putnam County without additional costs. Deploying more deputies, changing the schedule to ensure there are more deputies on patrol, giving them the technology, the skills, and the ability to do their job from their office, which is a radio card.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Anything else? My favorite
That's
color,
enough.
my favorite football team.
Baseball, Yankee.
Yeah.
There you go.
How about football? Maybe football. Are you a Jet fan? Giants?
Raiders.
Who do you like? Yeah. Nothing else, right? I mean,
I didn't get a chance I didn't get a chance to read your bio. Can you give us a little background of where you
how much time do you have?
came from? 10 minutes.
I don't need that. So I was born and raised in Cold Spring. Very fortunate. I live in the same house that I grew up in. Began dating my wife in 1973 when she moved up from the Bronx. Her father was a city firefighter. We've been married 40 years. This is the part where I asked him not to put it on tape, but we dated for 7. I held out as long as I could. We got married. We have 3 children, and they're very successful, thanks to my wife. They're all college graduates. 2 out of 3 have their masters. 2 are teachers. One's the head football coach at a local high school where he teaches. My other daughter's a teacher in Westchester. And then my middle child, my daughter, is a co-editor of a digital magazine. She works out in New York City. So she's been incredibly successful. I have 2 brothers. One was in law enforcement for 25 years with the New York State Police, retired as a first sergeant. There are only 10 of those in New York State. I went into law enforcement in 1979, rose through the ranks and was the first member of the MTA Police Department to become chief of department. I was on the governor's Homeland Security Task Force, and we interacted with, again, all the alphabets, and I have top-level security clearance on subject matter. I have 2 grandchildren, 8 and 6, who are my world. My wife and my daughters are in Germany, so it's been a nice little vacation. I get to work really late and not get yelled at. So my dad grew up in Cold Spring. He was involved in the village in a number of ways. We had a family business. It was a lumberyard and paint and hardware store. I learned my work ethic there. I learned that regardless of what it says on the building, you own it. How you act and how you treat people is how you'll be dealt with. I learned my values and my morals from that. My dad served the village as a trustee, village clerk, and mayor for 46 years. My family's been all about public service. I go to work about 6:30 in the morning, and I get at my desk, and I leave about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. I don't have a problem with working weekends. My job is to keep you safe. My job is to present to you the best law enforcement services we can. I intend to do that. And I have been doing that for 8 months. And we're only going to get better. Thank you.
Have you seen any particular crime in the Roaring Brook Lake section? Is there anything going on here?
No, but in an adjoining community, we just saw, again, I got to be a little careful about too much information. We saw a burglary, and then we got a couple of reports while we were investigating that burglary of suspicious individuals in backyards and stuff. So we've now identified those people, and we are searching for them at their location to provide justice. So I'm telling you, we really do a very good job. We don't say a lot, try not to, things of importance we put out. But we want you to be able to live here, whether it's full-time or on the weekends or whatever you choose, safely. We want you to know things. But you do have to lock your doors. You have to be careful with your key fobs, your wallet, your credit cards. It's the way of life today. That technology that we use that makes us so successful and allows us to do the things we do can also be flipped upside down and used against each and every one of you. Now, my wife had her credit card, stolen. So, crime doesn't care who you are. Crime's an opportunity. And people spend a lot of time learning how to maximize that opportunity. But we intend to increase patrols, our visibility, School safety is a big concern. We will do something right after the Buffalo Top shooting and the Uvalde school shooting. We like to do what we call change our posture. So right after Tops, we went and we started doing things at certain environments. Right after Uvalde, we started changing our posture at the schools. We had an immediate meeting telephonically. I spoke to the county executive and the chair of protective services and advised them what I was going to do. I also then called the New York State Police, Carmel, Kent, the 2 village police departments, Cold Spring and Brewster, and asked for everyone's assistance in applying a change in posture. We will be doing that in the coming weeks as school opens. I've met with all the school superintendents. We have a large meeting on August 24th. I've asked to be invited to Superintendent's Conference Day. Now, it's going to be tough. I'm an Irishman who likes to talk. All right? So you got 30 minutes. Somehow I'm getting 45 out of that. But it's important that they understand what we're doing, not just at superintendent level, but the principals, the assistant principals, the vice principals, and the whole faculty. We're meeting with parent groups prior to the start of the school year. We want to be heavily involved. We're looking to build partnership with all of these communities and all these entities so that we can address issues before crime occurs. It's a lot of labor, but it's a labor of love. Anything else? I get to go home and have a cup of tea.
Thank you.
I am not a coffee guy. I drink tea. Thank you all very much. And if you ever need anything, call the office and we will take care of it. Okay?
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming out.
Thank you.
We're a small community, and I'm
Great turnout.
sure there's a lot of people that look for you to come and present.
Yeah, if you belong to an organization or group and you want to hear me speak, invite
Remind us the phone number?
to call us. Non-emergencies 845-225-4300. Emergencies 911. If you think it's an emergency, 911.
Thank you very much, sir. Take care.
Guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Be well.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks.
Take care. Great question.
Thank you.
Many thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, so I know a number of you were at the budget meeting prior to this meeting, so sorry that if I'm going to repeat any of it, but we did have a budget. I can give a copy to Alex. Alex, you can scan it, put it on the website. It's a preliminary budget, so it's nothing. There'll be another budget meeting in September. There was a couple of things that we did bring up that they're going to adjust the budget for. And those of you who were at the meeting with me, just correct me if I misspeak. But we are going to do some dredging. We want to do some dredging here at Children's Beach and at Park Beach. So there's Cove Beach.
No, Park Cove.
Oh, Park Cove.
Cove,
The
not-
cove,
not the beach.
Not the beach itself, right? So that we put some money in the fund for that. We abandoned boats and building boat racks. We put some money in there because we want to get rid of a lot of the derelict boats that don't have current tags on them. There's a whole legal process for that. Yes.
I have a question. Once you figure out the legalese on these boats, are you gonna do like a little auction, or are you just gonna, how are you gonna
Yeah.
dispose of
It
them?
depends upon the condition of the boats. I mean, we don't want to just transfer ownership and it's now somebody else's problem for a boat that isn't going to be waterworthy.
Right.
So yeah, well, if they're of any value, we could have auctions for it. I'm sure people that have boats that haven't used them in a while, what we can do on the website is people can say, paddle boat for sale or sailboat for sale, canoe, whatever. We can put that on there and sort of like instead of a Facebook marketplace, we'll have a Roaring Brook Lake marketplace.
Yeah, because some of them that don't work, like you store
Yeah.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
just curious as to
If somebody wants it, it's easier to give it to somebody rather than have to pay to get rid of it. But they're going to put a line in the budget for it. The logistics of it all will be worked out, but they're all going to have a letter going out to the entire community about the boats and leaving stickers and all of that stuff. So that'll be coming around November, I think you said. November.
In November, I wrote it down November 1st.
Yeah, on or around November 1st.
Yep.
They're going to have a letter from the town regarding the boats and all of that.
Mike,
Yes.
could you tell us how much is on each line item that you wrote down? How much?
Oh, there's a whole.
What did
We'll
you budget?
post it on the website. There's a whole list of them, but the total, and the total isn't even. This is preliminary. The total was. Come on. It was. Where is it here? 167,000. Is that all right? No, that's actual. 272,330. But that was.
That's everything.
That's everything.
Our part of it is.
Yeah. Well, we're paying. Oh, you have the. You have it there.
You just here.
Okay. All right. But yeah, I don't want to. There's a whole bunch of.
Add it.
And there's a whole bunch of lines that we have no control over.
Yeah.
There's a lot of administrative lines and stuff.
Right.
And the other big item was, actually it wasn't, well, obviously, trash removal is going to be probably the biggest line in the budget. And we have no control over what AAA charges, and when they go out to bid, other parting companies don't bid on it because it's sort of, I don't want to say it about but yeah, so
But it is going out to bid this year.
yeah, it's going to go out to bid, and hopefully we'll get a decent price. But I wouldn't bet on it. Yes.
What's the year-to-year increase from last year to this year?
Well, this is a preliminary budget, so in this, and the easiest way, I'll put it on the website so everybody can look at it. Last year's original budget was 271,435. This year, 272,330. But all of that is subject to change. So they took our requests, and they're going to put together a more realistic budget, and they'll post it before the meeting in September.
Is there a plan for the dredging? Do we have, anything
They're working
formal?
on it. The town and the wetlands inspector, they're putting the plan together. But it's going to be just for this cove here, Children's Beach, and the cove by Park.
And this one's gonna require state approval?
It requires DEC
You
approval.
see, there's a dredging, yeah.
And do
Right.
you know where the material will go?
The materials are going to go over here. We'll recycle them and use. Eventually, one day, we'd love to do it enough that you can have stairs going down to the lower park. Get enough material. But Jackie is supposed to get back to us on Wednesday, because the only thing that's holding it up, believe it or not, is Spur Beach. Spur Beach is still technically not open, so the DEC will not provide any permits for these projects until Spur Beach gets closed.
Could any of that material go to fix the grade at Spur Beach?
Oh, if we're dredging it, I don't think we want it back
What
in
do you
the
mean?
water.
No, if Spur Beach is closed because of the grade problem there?
Yeah, they closed Spur Beach years ago because they said it was too dangerous. So,
Just keep a
yeah,
top off.
you can't. Yeah, right now the DEC is working with Jackie, and they have to figure out exactly how to open it up. So you can't put that material there, though. It's all rock that's coming.
So Spur Beach is open with a variance, and I think they have to adjust the variance before they'll give these permits.
Correct.
Okay. So, yeah.
Correct. So they'll know on Wednesday or so, and then after that, hopefully there'll be enough time to get the permits. If not, then they'll have to be pushed out to the following year. But if they get the permits, they're gonna need to lower the lake by 6 feet. So they will send out a flyer to everybody, tell them that we'll be lowering the lake starting X date, 6 feet. And if you need to do any work on your property, file for permits. That's the time to do it. Okay.
How much is the lake usually drawn down?
4 feet.
So this will be a
Well,
bigger drawdown this winter if
Be
it goes forward.
But last year it was down 5. So it'll be
Probably down 2 already now, so.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. What?
I know you can't give us an exact date, but what month are you going to draw it back?
Well, what they normally do is they start drawing down in October, and then if they get the permits, the work would start December, January. It's finished, then they can let the lake come back up again, like they did this year. Providing it depends on conditions of the ice and stuff like that.
Any other questions on the budget? Yes.
Any update on the dam?
Give us a second. We'll go on to the committee meetings on
Okay.
that.
Then come-
But there is money, 35,000, I believe, for the dam remediation.
And Mike, there's a lake monitoring line item
Yep.
for $25,000.
Yeah. So, Ina, do you want to speak about lake monitoring? You want to do the whole beach report, and you can include that?
So, So $25,000 sounds like a lot of money for lake management, but it actually is very well spent money. This is our biggest resource. It's what makes us different from just another community. And so what we spend on it matters. That money goes to a whole variety of things, including our lake manager, the presentations and interaction that our lake manager has with us, the preparation of analysis and reports, and it also covers a lot of expenses that the lake manager has to pay out of their pocket to give us that material. So for example, it pays the laboratories who do the analysis of the samples that are sent. We hired a separate contractor to do the fish study last year that we did. And that was a very useful study. And we can ask about that later. So all of those things are why this isn't, it seems like some huge amount of money. It's not going into our lake manager's pocket, HA's pocket. It goes for a whole number of things that it costs him to do this kind of management and analysis. One reason to have a lake manager and a lake management plan is that it's not possible to apply for grant money unless you have that kind of analysis and understanding of your lake. So we hope that this positions us in such a way as to be able to do that in the future. So I hope that helps to explain that a little bit. $570 of that goes to our fees for CSLAP. That's the volunteer program that you'll either see me or Sam out at the buoy here collecting samples, and those are then processed at the expense of the state. So volunteers collect them, the laboratories are paid for by the state. The money that we pay for that is the administrative costs of running that program and collecting the samples and bringing them back. So that's a very well, all of those things are well worth spending the money on. What I want to emphasize to people is that the lake has been superb. I mean, wonderful for swimming, wonderful for boating, couldn't be better. But there are things happening that we have to keep an eye on, because otherwise they will escalate fast and we will have trouble. Sometimes people say to me, this is the clearest lake in Putnam County, New York State, lots of things like that. That is so far from the truth. When a lake is considered to have poor visibility, it's when the visibility, and we use a black and white thing to measure that is less than 2 meters, 6 feet of visibility. We hover around that. We'll go to 2.7 meters, sometimes 1.9. So we just hover around that 6-foot depth. Just to give you some comparison, China Lake here in Kent, which is very near to us, has a 15-foot visibility. You can see the bottom from 15 feet. There are lakes in the Adirondacks that have 30 and 40 feet of visibility because they're not developed and they're very clear. But it just, our phosphorus levels, again, are at that tipping point. We just, 20 is the cutoff between a lake that's declining and one that's eutrophic, declining, and mesotrophic, meaning sort of in the middle. And ours runs, sometimes 19, sometimes 21, but we just have to keep an eye on that. So these are all things that having a lake manager does. And it puts us in the position to be ready to move when it's time to move. It puts us, in the position of beginning to understand what the various options are for doing these interventions. And they include a variety of different things. So it is good for people to become used to it so that, again, we can move along quickly when it's time to make that move. I want to say a minute about the fish study that we did last year. There is a way in which some of the recreational activities like swimming and boating and fishing are a little bit, you can't always please all the people all the time. So one thing you should know is that having a good weed population is beneficial towards the fish having to compete more to get their food, and the bigger, better hunters will get more and grow, and the ones who don't compete so well will fall off the tail. And so one of the things about having a lake where we have pretty good control, and I think the last 3 years have been really, everybody who's been here more than 3 years has memories of what it's like to pull those rakefuls of weed out of the lake, to be there rowing and not be able to move your rows, to be swimming, and every time you swim, you come up with a handful of weeds. So those are things that do make a difference to us. But for the fishermen's point of view, they have decreased the number of good game fish the large fish that are really fun and exciting to catch. I do have one piece of good news about that, so hold on for a minute. But the fish study showed that we actually had a lot of largemouth bass. That's the game fish that people are interested in. The problem was they were skinny and they were small. So what was happening was they were all getting some food, but not enough to really grow large. There are a number of different things that can be done to address that, but we had been spending $3,000 a year to put bait food into the lake. Because of the number of game fish, of predatory fish that eat that bait in the lake, one of the things we discovered with our fish study is that that amount of bait fish was going to add approximately half an ounce in weight to every fish in the lake. So it really wasn't a good expenditure of our money. It was kind of like, appeasing people. Well, we spent $3,000 to get those fish fatter, but it really doesn't work very well. Now, the good news, and there's some fishermen here, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I am not a fisher person, but I was told that although the fish haven't gotten bigger, they look fatter. So, anybody want to confirm that?
Well, they look longer. You said it right. They're just longer, not fat. Yeah, I think it just based around the bait fish that there's not enough of it. It's the competition. There's not enough of bait fish for them to eat.
Well,
so they're going to grow long, but they're not going to get fat.
Well, they are looking a little fatter to one person who I talked to, but not to everybody. And I think this is hard to really evaluate. But our, our grass carp are getting older, so we may begin to see the effect of more weeds, and more weeds will increase the size of the fish just by increasing the competition that they have to go through to get food.
Is the lake being stocked
With
No.
game fish,
with fish at all?
never
With-
has been. The only
No,
thing it's been
It has
stocked
been
with,
stocked in the past.
oh yeah,
Absolutely.
this is not a native fish. Big mouth
Right,
bass
but
is
it's
not
not
a
being
native.
stocked every year. It's not being
No,
stocked.
no, we stopped stocking, well, I think the last time we put, what, walleye in, I think it was? That was maybe about, yeah, it was maybe about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And after that, it's just bait fish.
Yeah.
But I do have a question for you, Ina. When are the carp gonna die?
Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
They said it was supposed to be 5 years. Originally, it was a 5-year, and then 7
They are
years,
sterile,
then
so
10
yeah,
years.
so they.
Yeah.
but they're big, they're
Yeah,
big,
well,
they're
they do
there,
their
and
job.
they do eat.
They
And
do their
the
job.
way I can tell you that they eat is I swim 5 or 6 days a week in the North Bay, the back, that's about 8 feet deep. And the milfoil, which is our most predominant invasive species, is growing from the bottom all the way up to about a foot from the top. But it's been staying that way for the last 2 weeks. So somebody's nibbling the tops of it. And that could be the carp. But there are carp. People who live in the coves have told me for sure that they see them.
Oh, they're tremendous.
They're
So,
about 3 to 4 feet long.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I do want to go back to the slide item for just a minute and ask
Please.
a question. The first question is, what do we do with the test results that we get every year after these studies are done? And the second part is, can we really act on the results of the study quick enough before we spend another 25 grand the next year? So it seems like, and I really will depend on your, it will depend on your answer. Is the cycle too short? Do we need a little bit more time? What's been your
It's a-
experience?
It's a problem. If we don't have a lake manager who is at the lake, involved with the lake on a continuous basis, then we have somebody who's not that interested. If we just have somebody who comes in and does some analysis, that is not going to give us the kind of information where somebody's watching, thinking, talking to us. And we're instituting this year. Our next meeting in September, AJ will be coming again. So we started this year, thank you, Mike, that AJ will be speaking to us at least twice. One at the beginning of the summer and one at the end of the summer. He's on the lake frequently. You will see him here, and you should always stop and talk to him if you'd like.
But the question was, can we implement his suggestions quick enough before we turn around and invest again? Like, what's the cycle like?
So it's kind of not exactly like maintaining a car where you do the oil change regularly. It's more that at a certain point, the numbers will have risen to a point where it's worth doing $100,000 or $200,000 project to reverse certain things that are going on. We could do that now. We do know some options for doing that, but he thinks that we can sit with it, and I think that there are a number of reasons to not jump the gun on doing these things. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't do things that you can do on your own property as opposed to the $200,000 thing that's done by the district? You should do everything you can to decrease silt and fertilizer and nutrients from going into the lake. So number one, 85% of people in this district pumped their septic tanks 5 years ago. If you've been pumping it every 2 or 3 years, you're not due legally for another pumping. That's the ideal thing to do with your septic tank. But if you did it 5 years ago, this is the year to do it. So please, if you haven't set up that appointment, call. Cook is giving us a nice discount, and other companies may as well, if you ask for it. But it is really important, as every time that septic tank is pumped and that material goes to a septic waste factory or plant, that's nutrients that aren't going into the lake. And even when the water that comes out of your tank and goes into your filtration system, your
Field.
field, yes, uh, it it may look clear, but it contains dissolved nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus. And the phosphorus in particular is taken up by organisms in the ground, bacteria, and so on, and then it's sequestered in soil particles. After a while, the field runs out of those binding particles, those places where the phosphorus can go. And then that phosphorus, which is not harmful to humans, but is harmful to a lake, begins to accumulate in the lake. And the water looks clear and you can drink it. You know, you can drink water with a very high phosphorus level. The level for a lake is much, much lower, orders of magnitude than it is for drinking.
Right, going back to the fish stuff, are they encouraging us to still throw back the fish?
No, if you get a large fish, you should throw it back for sure. But if you get a fish that is just past the legal size where you can keep it, you should take it out, because if we can just winnow out some of those smaller fish, that will allow the bigger fish to gain a competitive edge.
But the legal size is like what, 13 inches for bass? What
I
is it?
believe it's 13, 14.
Yeah, so, and most of the fish here are less than that, or close to that, yeah. So we're kind of, you're in for bad fishing until the carp dies. Once the carp are out, the fish will come up.
That's why you want to carp
Dead.
dead.
Yes, yes, I'd like to see 5-pound bass
And
in here again.
Lake Peaksville is looking to put them in. Maybe we should just give them ours.
Yeah.
So the next thing you can do on your own property is, if you have lakefront or you're actually anywhere that you're near a stream, you can plant a buffer planting that'll be deep rooted. Anywhere you see grass going down to the lake, around the lake, that's a risk, because the grass that we use for our lawns is very short rooted. You know, when you can see turf rolled up in a roll, so that turf has a short root. We're looking to put things in that have 2 or 3 feet or longer root systems and can really filter. Number 2 is to handle your drainage in a way that is productive, which mostly means that you want to infiltrate as much as you can into the ground, not have it run down to the lake. And when we lower the lake dramatically, one thing people might want to do is to walk along their seawall and to see where you might have little pipes that are going into the lake. And that will be very useful information, because once we know where those are, we can trace where they're coming from.
I have a question about drainage that's coming from the road due to the lack of piping from I don't know if it's the county or who do you contact for that? Because it would all come down into the lake.
From the
From the road.
Or the road. From the roads is the
From the
highway
road.
department. The Taconic would be DOT.
Even on the small road.
It's
Around the
highway
lake.
department.
The town highway department.
And they're the ones who when I drive around the lake, I see giant divots with piping in it.
So those are retention basins. They're not the best way to handle the runoff. The best way to handle the runoff would be plantings, essentially rain gardens that would absorb the.
You mean around the road?
But around the roads. But those retention basins are cleaned out on a regular basis. They were all cleaned out last year, and that means that they have room to get the fluid, let the sediment settle, and hopefully not have all that sediment
But
go.
that's DOT.
No, highway
Oh,
department,
highway department.
town highway.
Okay,
It's on the website, town website.
thank you.
Just to go back to what Dan was saying about the lake manager, I think Jackie is going to try to get us, like Ina was mentioning, grants, okay, as a result of having a lake manager. So hopefully she's going to come back and tell us how much, but currently it's 25,000 a year, so we're into it for about 100,000 so far. All right, but hopefully Jackie will come back and
But
get
that
us some.
25,000 is his salary and the testing he does.
Yeah, it's more than just salary and all things that he does.
And all
Like,
the things he does.
right,
And
exactly.
we think we've made a very sensible decision to stop putting $3,000 worth of bait fish in to gain a half an ounce for each fish. So that is the way that his studies already are helping us. He's identified areas that we made sure were pumped. He's been very helpful.
Filter
I think,
bags,
this whole year.
filter bags that you want to put in?
Well, we haven't gotten to it.
Right, but that's one of the.
He's working on seeing if we can get filter bags to filter some of that phosphorus before it goes. So the lake is really beautiful this year, and I hope everybody is enjoying it as much as I am.
Abby, you want to beaches?
Sorry.
So, just about beaches, right?
Beaches, whatever. Yeah, that's part of the beaches.
So everything with the beaches is water-wise, we've been really good. We haven't lost any swim days since I think that only one May day. We've had a couple of shortages of lifeguards, some questions about lifeguards being where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. I've absolutely brought that to the attention of the town. It's very difficult when they're here and then they leave for lunch. You know, yes, I follow up with them, but we're trying to figure out a better solution for next year to make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there. As for the people on the beach at nighttime, I know that is not just an issue at one beach versus another one. I'm happy to go and say, you know, hey guys, the beach is closed, but my issue is if it's 9 o'clock at night and I'm approaching a giant group of people, that's where I get like a little, it gets, you know, just a little, but
Abby is not the beach police. That's not her job.
But again, I live here too, and I don't want people in our community that potentially have ulterior motives to be here or enjoying a lake that they don't pay to have a right to be here. So if I can help escalate it, I can help to do that also. The garbages, we got big garbage totes from AAA. Finally, I took a picture of me wheeling them up to the beaches. I was so happy. And it's a lot easier for the lifeguards now to bring them down, especially at Spur. They were not sending a truck all the way down there, which was a huge problem. They wanted those cans at the end of the road with no wheels on it. Nobody was really. So now with the big wheels, tonight's Sunday, right? Saturday? Oh, Saturday, only Saturday. But I will make sure that we reach out to the lifeguard tomorrow, and then I always check that it's been taken out since then. For next year, moving forward, we're trying to see if there's some sort of a Sunday night, you know, $8, whatever, to take out the garbage. I know it seems like, oh my gosh, can't they just take out the garbage? But if somebody's been here all Monday through Saturday and they never work a Sunday and that lifeguard's here every Sunday, I don't know. But we're just trying to figure out a solution to make sure it happens for next year and that there's not garbage piling up everywhere. I met with the district clerk and the town engineer to discuss the walkway going down from Children's Beach to the parking lot, which on your way out, if you look now, it kind of dumps the end of the walkway is right into the road. So we've spoken, we're going to curve it, no stairs or anything. It'll just be a walkway at the end to put people into the parking lot to get to their vehicles rather than into the street. And we're going to, the idea that we discussed was to resurface it, not with the rock, because the rock keeps getting that divot down the middle. It just keeps washing away. My understanding is that it is a repeated issue that has to keep being remedied. So there is a sort of, it's not a concrete per se, but I don't know if you've ever been to like a water park where they have, it's sandy, it can be painted a light color, so it's not going to be noticeable. It'll have a little bit of grit in it so that it has traction to it. It'll follow almost the same pathway except for at the bottom where it will curve, and this will make it so that we don't have to keep figuring out what's going on with the walkway. It'll allow the water to be able to go where we want it to go instead of making a moat down the middle of it. So that is going to be drawn up, or whatever the wording is, it by the district clerk, and hopefully we can get that taken care of for next year. We spoke about boat racks hopefully happening, so if anybody's an expert boat rack builder and has some spare time. And yeah, so that's it for me. If you need boat tags or beach tags, well, mainly, yes, beach tags too, but boat tags, before November 1st, like we spoke about, there is that new code where everybody's going to need the boat sticker, which they should have now. But I anticipate around Halloween time, everybody's going to need more stickers because they're all going to have to be stickered. So I have them. If you put in a request on the website, I don't get like a Bing alert or something. So if it's like 5 days and you're like, okay, this girl's taking forever, maybe, have somebody who has my contact reach out to me. I do try to vigilantly check the spreadsheet to make sure. But, find, if for some reason it's taking too long, find me and then I will get it to you right away. I think that's it.
We have a round of applause for our.
Yes, and a question. Thank you.
Great job on the regatta, too.
Thank you.
People are generally very good in recycling, but we don't have any markers.
You're right.
So we could really improve if there would be designated things for recycling.
So each of the beaches did get a recycling tote with the orange lid, and then they have the regular green lidded.
Yeah, but it doesn't really work well. There should be a sign on the can.
On the can. Okay, we could look at
They're cheap.
Yeah, laminate it, stick it right on.
They are not being recycled. And
Yeah.
also, they are not sometimes overflowing or not empty on the Mondays. They are not getting out of the street.
Right. So yes, I could do something like that for each of them. That way people make sure that it's going the right places. And then the bins won't overflow either, because I know at certain beaches, there's so much garbage that they overflow.
And also, when we have the party here, we could have bins for recycling
Yes,
and not do everything combined.
I agree.
Because it's especially bad if in the recycling bin a lot of garbage comes because they go in the truck that has only recycle, and so it makes a mess for the company. That's stuff that we collect.
Yeah, I don't want to have to chase down AAA. So, I agree that we should encourage to recycle more at the beaches. So,
So,
watch for it. I'll handle it. You'll see it up there. Okay. All right. Turn it back over.
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, the regatta, Abby did yeoman's work on that along with Tommy, and I just appreciate everything they did. We did have some food left over, so I think at the next community meeting afterwards we'll have a little barbecue. So it'll be around lunchtime. So we'll use the food up for that. The burgers and Frank's, nothing special. Just to get rid of the food that we purchased, and right now the fire department's letting us keep it in their freezer down at Station 2, but we're begging them to keep it there. I don't want to. We'd just rather use it, so we'll do that. So look forward to that. But other than that, the regatta went well. It was pretty well attended, and we had a great day. And hopefully, in September we'll have another great day, so we can have that as well.
Who won the raffle?
So it was a mother and a daughter that won the 50-50 and the basket of cheer. Like, they each put in tickets. I don't know their first name. It's one of them started with an M, Marika maybe, but they were both very happy. So.
Did she come on a bike?
Yes.
Yeah, Marika.
Yes, because I said I always see that flag when I'm going around. I'm like, better. So yeah.
Mike, can we make mention of the 5K coming up?
Yes, we put out a newsletter every week, or we try to. Hopefully everybody is getting that. I know Alex and Melissa and Mike are doing an excellent job of putting material together for the website. We want to continue to open up the website. There is a link on the website to the 5K. I know that the enrollment has been rather low, so I know they're going to have it whether they have a good turnout or not, but I'd rather them see that we have a good turnout so that, we can do it again and again. So please, I believe it's September 5th, 4th or 5th or something. Yeah.
Sunday at 9 o'clock.
Right.
I saw one sign and that had been removed. So you don't have any sign for the people
Signage,
to
Leslie
walk
put
around.
up a lot of signs, but yeah, somehow they were ripped down in different
Yeah.
places.
So Leslie is
happens to my
handling the
signs,
5K. We're with the Property Owners Association really doesn't have a lot to do except we're trying to promote it.
Yeah, but we have to encourage the people to actually
Yeah,
walk.
no, I definitely. So
So we need a sign.
we'll let Leslie know that, I'm sure she knows that the signs are down,
Yeah.
but, we'll have her put them back up again.
Or they
Oh,
got,
my mistake.
they got removed by the wind. They got,
Once again, it's not, we didn't do it. Leslie's taking in charge of that. So we'll
It's
tell her.
Westchester Road Runner this year in cooperation with the POA.
Right.
oh, you need some signs that can help.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much all we had. Anybody have anything they want to bring up? Yeah, I think we lost half the the attendees.
The new cans.
And last year I
Old
put,
cans?
you know, the old garbage cans?
Yes,
Well,
I'm gonna get rid of them. I
yeah.
kept them here for the regatta
Yeah, I was
because I
gonna
thought we
say,
might need them.
like when we have a regatta or something, we need extra cans, so I don't know if we should
Yeah,
get
but
rid
we
of
got-
them, maybe we'll just
I have
put 'em
cans
off
hit
to
it
the
all
side.
over up here. There's
Yeah,
there's 3 there, like 5 back there, so there's an overabundance of them. I don't know if we want to hang on to them
Yeah.
till bulk pickup and I'll put them out.
Yeah.
Last year I put my goat wheel that, goat pickup and I did.
Yeah, I'll put a note. We'll get another sign. But yeah, well, or we could maybe we could have the Steve Town would take some of them too on one of the town boat days.
Okay,
That's it.
anything else?
Thanks,
Thank you
Mike.
all.
Thank you, Mike.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
It's freezing.
Yeah, all of a sudden, yeah, the sun went in